I promised to talk about the Tim Curry stories, and so it's like, because the next one to tell was a little bit different.
Did that really just happen? Have I actually understood? This weird quirk I've tried to suppress or hide is a talent that could help me meet the wizard if I make good.
It happened in September of 1988, and this one is when we call it Tim Curry embarrassed the crap out of me, really. But it was sort of fun. Of course it was fun. It was Tim. And so what's not fun about Tim Curry embarrassing the out of you?
Angela, like the singing of a sad, silent...
According to the Master's grand scheme, their souls are linked. They're supposed to be together.
So, funny, actually. He's a very funny man. Now, when I met him, you all know, in 1987, August 28th, he kept looking at my chest, which I thought was interesting. Wasn't sure. I was thinking maybe it was in my head. Well, a year later I was proven that it was not in my head. I mean, it could have been, but it wasn't, because he did it to somebody else. So, when I met him, he was doing the tour of me and my girl, rehearsing it in Manhattan. And so a year later he was still on the road with the show. I decided to go and see it when it got closer to New York. And the closest place, I thought, was Washington, D.C. So my friends Suzanne, Malia, my friend Debbie Colby, she just died in 2007, and my friend Arlene Fakina.
I'm gonna live and live now. Get what I want, I know how. One roll for the whole shebang. One throw, that bell will go clang. Eye on the target and wham. One shot, one gunshot, and bam!
It was 1988. Anyways, before we left New York, and I had met Tim the year before, we had exchanged ads in the Village Voice. And one of the newspaper ads, the Voice, I had said, on the back of the Village Voice, I said, isn't it, let's have drinks sometime. And he had written back, anytime, you're Tim. And because I wanted to double check to make sure it was him, this is when I found out for sure that it was. It had been a year, and there had been no drinks. So I placed another ad. I said, my dearest Tim, ... as I always did. Isn't it about time we had those drinks? I'm getting really thirsty. And ... your angel.
What a spell on you.
And I placed the ad. I got the copy of it. I did it like a week before we left so I could have it and bring it with me. And I brought Tim that. We came to Washington, D.C. and I had the Village Voice with me.
1, 2, 3.
Let me entertain you. Let me make you smile. Let me do a few tricks, some old and then some new tricks.
And before we left New York, I wrote a letter to the theater, exactly where I was sitting. I told him who I was, gave him a reminder about the Village Boys ads, and that I would be there to see him on the date that I was there. And I told him my seat numerology, because the seat number was the same as my birthday, 9/28, and I had met him August 28th, and I told him it was the best birthday I ever had, since we were at September 17th, which adds up to 8. 1 plus 7 equals 8. So I thought there was this weird synchronicity, numerology, etc. So I wrote him this beautiful letter in my beautiful letter, enough time that he would get it before we arrived, and where I was sitting. So that's important to remember. We get to the show, And I knew the show like the back of my hand because I was ushering the production in New York on Broadway, and I knew the script backwards and forwards, so I could tell you if they're missing a line or not. And there's a scene where the character that Tim Curry plays, Bill Snipson, he's reading letters that he got from Lambeth, where he's from. Here we are. It's September 17th. We're in Washington, D.C., sitting in the audience at the National Theater. So when he pulls out the letters, they have a real letter on stage. They did in the Broadway show, and as well as Tim's show. There's a line like, "Oh, look, mail from home." And he reads the letter out loud and turns it over. And it's a funny scene. So to that scene, and I'm thinking, Tim knows I'm here, because he has to know, because I wrote him a letter and told him, if he remembers me. It's been a year. I've only seen him twice in my whole life, and wrote him. We had this great exchange and everything. What seat I'm in the audience. Debbie is beside me, and I think Suzanne, and then Arlene, but I don't remember, but I know Debbie was right to my right. And the scene has come up in the play where he's actually getting a letter from Lambeth. He pulls out this letter that looks strangely very much like my stationery, my beautiful and strangely enough, it looks like my handwriting on the letter from the distance that I'm at. And I'm looking at Debbie, and she's kind of looking at me going, "Does that look like your handwriting?" Because everybody knows I have the neatest handwriting in the world. It's very beautiful, you know, somewhere. But I swear he was holding it up to look like my letter, and the letter, and says, "Oh, look, fan mail," and turns straight and looks right at me. Looks right. His co-star looks right at me, and they stop and don't say anything for a second, as if they're just looking right at me. I know they were looking at me because everybody in the audience turned and looked at me, and I turned every shade of red, dropped into my seat, because I was so embarrassed. I heard whispers, "He must know her." Embarrassed the hell out of me. At that point, everybody's just whispering about me, and this is like at the, I don't know, beginning of the show. It's kind of like the first quarter of it. And then we had the rest of the show to go, and as it went on, people were just like looking back at me, whispering, wondering who I was, why he pointed me out in the audience, and it was really, really funny. We went backstage at that point, and the backstage area is in the front of the theater and to the side of the main entrance, and it's like a long hallway indoors. And I was right at the front, and there was a brick wall behind us, like a big. And then people started gathering, but we were right at the front. Everybody kind of stood in a line against this wall or near the wall. So came out, and then Tim came out. About the time that Tim came out, and I have the Village Voice in my hand, ready to hand him just the back page. Right. Okay, we're standing there, and the little girl and her mother are kind of standing a little bit to the side in front of us, but below us. And as Tim comes out the door, he looks straight at me and starts making a beeline towards me, and the mother and the child intercept him. And then he crouches down and talks to the little girl and signs an eye, which was very cute, but he keeps side-glancing me. The man is side-glancing me the whole time, looking at me, almost to that look of like, "I know you, I just don't remember where." Now, mind you, he only met me a year before, and the only time he had ever seen me was twice the year before, almost exactly a year, and kind of smiling. And then he talks to the little girl, and then she leaves. Her mother just takes her away, and they leave. And he makes up to my face, right to my face. In fact, so close that I'm up against the wall that I actually backed up a little because he was coming straight towards me. Thought he was going to kiss me, and actually Arlene thinks he was trying to give me a kiss on the cheek or something, but I just didn't know to expect that from Tim Curry. It would have been great, but I didn't know that. And first thing he gets in my face, and he goes, "You're here?" And I said, "Yes." And I handed him, I went, this is for you. And I handed him the Village Voice. So he unfolds it away. I know he turned away from me, and he's unfolding it, and he goes, and he reads it, and I wrote something. He said, "Oh my God, that was you?" And he looks right in my eyes, and he says, I said, "You remember?" He goes, "Of course I remember."
How'd you do, Lyre? See you met, Lyre. Sorry, Angela, not my thing. You do it. Boy, the size of it.
And that's how I knew he wrote the ads to me. That was, I mean, why would he say that if he didn't write them? It would make no sense to say, "Oh my God, that was you." Enough proof for me, because otherwise why would he know what I'm talking about? It's been a whole year. If he didn't write those ads, he wouldn't know. He wouldn't understand it. He would have said, if he was just very, very excited. And then he says, and I'll never forget this quote the rest of my life,